Okay, welcome. This is strand number 3, measurement and data. And as you can see, it's going to cover 3 different things: sorting and classifying, data analysis, and measuring. So there you can see the breakdown within the math standard. We're on number 3. So concept 1, the very first thing they talk about is sorting and classifying. And it is really very simple to practice sorting. My kids are doing this all the time. They tend to naturally kind of be drawn to putting items in the place where they belong. So things like just putting all their cards together, or putting all their dolls in a pile, or looking at different buttons, and realizing that all of these are heart shaped, so they put all the heart ones in a pile. It's really pretty much as simple as that. So my daughter and I like to do different sorting activities. You can see here we have a bunch of like little felt characters and things like that. And so we had just thrown them all in a big bucket for a while. And, now that we can't leave the house, I figure what better time to sort them. So I would hand her one, and she would put it where it belongs. And this is something that is kind of that having your children help you with the chores. This is a prime example. And as we were working through them, she was putting them where they go, and I actually had added these little example ones up above, so that we kind of had, like, we knew these kind of people would go here, and the large furniture and stuff would go here, and the small people would go here. So if we just worked our way through it, we know that toddlers are natural sorters. You can see here we got 2 little kiddos, and just using a muffin tin. One reason I'm a big fan of using like different kinds of sorting containers. And you can see they're just using colored pieces of paper, and they're sorting them into their appropriate places. And then you can see my little one over here. She actually was picking out all of the plain stickers from like these little sticker books that we had, and was putting them onto the art easel. And I remember that kind of blew me away, because she's clearly very young, but she was naturally like already sorting. And then of course we try to give a lot of resources and materials. So this was one I had gotten from FFN back when I was a provider, when I was running my preschool. And so you can kind of see that I had given them these different pictures, and they were just sorting their buttons according to whatever little picture that they had. Um, and then sorting can be like kind of open-ended, in my opinion. So I had a bag of giant puff balls and cotton balls, and I was kind of more working on the fine motor portion of this, but they're still sorting and putting things in their little container the way that they want. So you can see I'm using ice cube trays and egg containers, and then just like some big buckets. And I just like to give my kids a lot of random stuff and see what they do with it. Here they are. I'm pretty sure you've already seen this kind of same variation of like letters and numbers. And I would have them in different sensory tubs. And my oldest here was working through the alphabet based on the one she had, whereas the other kids were just kind of looking for the letters in their name. And so even though they're working on letters, like, this is a math skill that they're also developing at the same time. And we use this in a lot of different ways. I really liked this activity. It was something that we did for quite a while. I took a bunch of like random cubes, colored cubes, threw them in a bucket, and then they would pick out a piece with their little tweezers and put them in their basket. And when they picked out a color, they would color it on their little graph chart, kind of under her arm. And this was kind of the way that they were recording how many of each color they had found. And again, I was just kind of letting them do what they would do, and wanted to see what that would look like. And this is how it turned out. And then you can see my little one here, Haley, is doing her different colors. And just again, she would pick a random letter out of the bucket and she would identify the color and then find the right crayon and color it in there. And this was an activity that it actually, they did this quite a long time. And then we took it a step further. We took the picture that they had colored and we had them switch pictures and stuff. And then I had them go find a different item with the same color. And they had to put it on the picture in the same color. And this was just kind of like a treasure hunt kind of thing that we did, and they absolutely loved it. But really, I mean, they're recording data at this point in time. They're analyzing what they've got in the data and then finding different colored objects to match it up. It was very interesting. So you can see here in the middle, this was something I would have loved to get for you guys, but I couldn't justify spending $49.99 because that's ridiculous. But Lakeshore does have really cool like counting trees. However, you can get one of these from the dollar store and you can be just as effective with different containers and dividers and sorters. So you can see this girl's got a bunch of numbers on a high chair, and then they literally just divided up the chalkboard into 4 different numbers, and everywhere she found one of those numbers, she put it in the right place. So I like to do activities like this. Even if I can't afford to get the super cool, like complete set, there are a lot of cheaper variations. Like if you don't have ice cube trays and egg carton containers, like you're missing out. You could totally be using those. Then we talk about data analysis, and this one always kind of like threw me off because it seemed like it would be too complicated. So what I like to simplify this as is when we do sorting, it helps us to analyze the data. So if I were to put all of my little felt objects into their different containers with Olivia, and then she could look at those containers and tell me which one we had the most of. That right there is literally data analysis. If you have a snack option and you say, okay, do you want, pretzels or apple pieces? And you have a kid go around and ask, how many kids want pretzels and how many want apples? That's the kind of data analysis that they can be doing at this point in time. So it doesn't have to be as complicated as we might as adults think it could be. So here's a great example. First, if we talk about the buttons here, I love buttons. I'm not gonna lie. So you give them a bunch of buttons and you have them sort them out. Then I can ask questions like, how many white buttons do we have, or which one do we have the most or the least? Same idea with the cars over here. Thanks to Lori for sharing this photo with me, but you can see down here they have the different colors and they are sorting all the cars into their appropriate place. And it's really interesting to see how this happens because once they get done, they have a very easy like visual representation to look at that shows us what cars we have the most of and what cars do we not have any of. And so this is the kind of like data analysis and sorting that can take place during play. So the NAEYC had made a statement that for young kids, when we do things like sorting, they're building those scientific skills. So, one of the standards was the science standard, and it had inquiry as one of their concepts that are learned in science. And that's basically what it looks like at this point. You can see that they're sorting, in this child's sorting by colors. Sometimes they sort by like the different kinds of animals, like these all have long necks or these all have pointy horns. That's literally a science skill, and it's data analysis, and it's sorting and comparing and describing, and it's all just happening with the toys they're already playing with. So measuring is one that's super fun because you can kind of just build it into the dramatic play that they're already doing. If you have rulers and tape measures, those are things that can be out in their play area. It can be out in your math center, or it can be out in your dramatic play, your dress up. I love doing measuring stuff with the kids Um, they really seem to like to find, you know, I don't know how to explain this. They like to find, which items are biggest and longest and round and all sorts of things. And we can use different tools to measure them. So like if you don't have a tape measure, for example, or, like a flexible measuring tape, you can literally get a big piece of string or ribbon. And just give that to the kid and see if they can find something that can wrap all the way around. So it's kind of one of those things, again, that we're letting them explore with these ideas. And we're not like directly teaching them necessarily. Like I like to give my kids scales and then let them go pick out a bunch of rocks and see which rocks weigh more. Or we take our little dinosaur toys and we weigh the dinosaurs. Or does two Tyrannosaurus Rexes weigh more than, two apples? It doesn't even matter. It's just more about like letting them explore that. So we get a lot of super cool measuring tools. These are the scales that I like. I've got different rulers and things like that, a soft, flexible tape measure. And then we had just gotten these after the Murphy conference. And if you're not using those, man, I tell you what, my kids have been obsessed. I put them outside with the water play, and they have been measuring up a storm lately. And again, the idea of measurement, it's happening during play. So it's things like giving them tools to be explorers. Like if I were to sorry, go back to that. If I want to see which weighs more, this pile of blue crabs versus green bears or whatever it is, measuring how long my mittens are based on these unit cubes. Or if I put all my animals and I line them up, which one is the longest? Using a ruler and having them measure their animals as part of like a dramatic play, like a vet play. Have them measure their body parts, have them measure the room that you guys are in, measure scissors. They can lay out different things to measure how many of these little footprints. How long is the door frame? Well, it's 8 footprints long. And these scissors are 6 cubes long. Uh, and teaching them to use their body, like their feet, to measure how long a room is. So again, that vocabulary that really is going to draw their attention to these kinds of things. It's going to be things like bigger, taller, smaller, shorter, wider. Talking about distance, far away, close, long and short. Sizes like big and medium and small, tall and short. And even time can kind of fall into this one, understanding like the pattern of the day. So first we're going to do this, and then later we will go outside. So just lots of ways of like measuring the things that are relevant to them. When we talk about temperature, like hot and cold, that's very relevant to them. So that all falls under the measuring as well. Sending them on a size scavenger hunt. I kind of thought this was a cool idea because I had not done this. But giving them an item and then sending them off to find something that is longer and shorter or heavier and lighter, and then having them weigh, or measure those together. And when you take and you give them like a ball, have them find a ball that is bigger and a ball that is smaller. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to utilize scavenger hunts or treasure hunts, which my children are obsessed with, but also build in that measuring aspect to it. And of course, if you are not baking and letting your kids help you in the kitchen, you're really missing out. They love to do this. They want to do this, even if it's something as simple as like preparing a snack. Okay, you're going to put out 3 plates, and each plate gets 3 pieces of apple. That's all math skills that can be taking place. So I actually have my girls here making up some banana bread. Um, and this is just something that is a benefit for both of us. They get to practice cooking and measuring and mixing, and I get to eat banana bread. So this was a win-win. All right, more with the slime. The string slime, you can see my oldest being very like tedious with and very like attention to detail, pouring it in a little spoon. The other one, meanwhile, she's just squeezing out the whole bottle in the tub. So we are going to head back to the Facebook page, and we want to make sure we share our comments and our ideas on this video section, and then we will get the last one posted up.